Welcome everybody to a new episode of Flower Circus Talks. Today we've got a very special guest from the United States. For the people, I don't think she needs an introduction. And if I should do the introduction, it would be a very long one because she's an icon within the industry. She has done awful lot of jobs and great jobs, and she has so much energy. She has so much knowledge. So let's quickly invite her into the live stream. Cindy, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Florida. It's a great honor to have you in our live stream. Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
First of all, how are you? How's your health? How's the family?
Very good. My mother, I have an 84-year-old mother, 84 in November. She's very healthy. She's planting her garden and spending a lot of good time at home. And I have 5 brothers and sisters. They're all healthy as well. So just hello from the United States. And I just want to give a shout out to everybody watching across the pond and let you know that here in the United States, our hearts go out to you as well for any family members who are struggling with this disease. And even though we're going to talk about business today, I think we all agree it's family first and keeping everybody healthy and business second. But thank God my family is healthy, and we're going to support this thing as long as it takes.
Yeah, it really is. I said you don't need an introduction, but maybe for the people who don't know you, can you tell briefly what you did and what you're doing at the moment?
Yes. Well, I've been in the flower business all of my life. My ancestors actually came over from Germany in 1875. My mother's last name is Rentz, R-E-N-T-Z, so that's a nice German name. They came over in 1875, brought the flower business here to the United States. They cut the top off of a barn and started a greenhouse. And long story short, over 4 generations, I worked in my grandmother's flower shop as a little girl. And then my father said, you got to go out and get a real career. At that point, was not hanging out in grandma's flower shop. And so I went into a supermarket. And at that point, there were no flowers in a supermarket. Lo and behold, that was in a Kroger store. They put their first flowers in a supermarket about 2 years later. And the store manager tapped me on the shoulder and he said, hey, well, you want to go over here and help with this new flower shop thing? And so I got into the supermarket floral segment after being in a traditional florist environment. And then after about 30 years, I was called to work for a large e-commerce company. And I worked there. It's very different selling flowers online. Once you've sold it for many, many years offline, you sell online and people can't touch, feel, pick it up. So you learn a lot working with the online customer and selling what we sell, the floral products. And so I've one of probably very few, if any, who have experience in all 3 what we call channels of the industry: traditional florist, supermarket floral, and e-commerce. And I've worked on the back end supply chain and also consumer facing. What I do now is I spend all of my time writing for the industry, educating. I've got a website. I work in trade shows. I work in technology, on strategies, and people call me, they usually say a futurist is what people call me. I'm really not as interested in what's happening today. I'm more interested in what we think is going to happen tomorrow. And technology is a big part of that. I heard Pete yesterday talk, and I think he hit the nail on the head. And he mentioned a lot of ways technology can change what we do, and I think we're seeing that now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think especially if you look at Europe. I think we're miles away from where you are actually. With if you look at the online sales, but at the moment you see that the online sales are flying, or maybe catching up with the pace that you already have in the US. Yeah, so there's a big difference, I think, in the world between the countries, what's already going on and where we're going to. And that's actually why we started these Flower Circus talks as well, to learn from each other and to connect all the people all over the world and see if we can learn from, I think we can learn from everybody. Growers can learn from export companies, from florists, and the other way around. Like Caroline said on Friday, it's not a competition. It's not about who's going to win. We need to stay together and work together to get out of this.
Well, and I think that's one thing that I think from my background, having worked in all three channels, the traditional florist, supermarket, and online, is each channel has a certain hallmark that will never go away. They have a certain strength. And I think I think to get to into the future in the best way possible, leverage all of those strengths. And I also think, and thank you to what you're doing, leverage people internationally also. Because every time, I see something new here in the United States, I'll go to Europe and see 5 more things that I've never seen before. And so I think one of the things, this video for one, but also can we continue things like this and share ideas? Because at the end of the day, the customer doesn't think of flowers as a traditional florist or I'm going to a supermarket or e-commerce. They choose by, I want something great for my mother tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if it's great, I'll buy it. And so I think in the same way, our countries working together, technology will help us do that. And if this virus, as bad as it is, helps us to move into that efficiency, I think it's something that one thing possibly out of a very, very dark thing could happen to help our business as we go forward. People, as you see, how many people are doing things online? If you look at Facebook, LinkedIn, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff online. And some people may say, oh my goodness, that's crazy. Too many people are doing it. Everybody's doing the most simple things online. But what it really shows us, and I think the good news, people are becoming more comfortable with technology. We are, and our consumers are. And that is such good news, I think.
Yeah, that really is. And we start to realize that we don't need to be, of course, there are jobs acceptable, but we don't need to be at our office all the time. We can work from home, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. We do it now. So why shouldn't we do it later on as well?
Well, I was telling somebody the other day that as we move past this virus, I wonder how many companies are going to look at their high-rise towers, 20 floors of office buildings, and look back and say, we didn't miss a beat with people working from their computers remotely. Why are we building all these high-rise buildings and the expense of offices and the expense of heat and all that? So I think all of that, what Pete said yesterday is really the springboard, and I agree 100%. We have to unify to bring that together because people are in a new way more comfortable with it. And we could have said that probably 2 months ago, but I think we see it now for ourselves.
Yeah, even some companies I used to work for, and they were always like, okay, you have to be inside before 8 o'clock in the morning and only leave at 5 or 6. Even they start to realize, why do we need people all day in the office? Because people can do it from home or wherever. and especially in a big town with. Why should you go and stand in traffic for 2 hours to go to your job, 2 hours back home, back in traffic again?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can be so much more efficient than we are, than we were, actually, than we were. I mean, some people are even more efficient at home with 4 children running around the desk. So, yeah, can you imagine without those children?
Oh, yes.
So, what I wanted to mention to the people who are watching, you've got a newsletter which you send out, and it's packed with a lot of good information. I think I really love your newsletter. So yeah, people subscribe on it, and you will yeah, you will see the latest information, latest news. Yeah, I think it's a great source of information, and it's a great job that you are doing. Not only the newsletter, I mean on the website as well. I mean, it's all about connecting the whole industry. There are still so many blank spots, I think, where people sometimes produce something, a really nice product. Some people don't even know about it, or they're asking for something like that, but they don't get connected.
Well, I think one of the things that over all of these years is very important for me is connecting to the consumer. And are we doing it? And I tell people during my training sessions, we may think that we're doing well and we're doing okay at communicating the message, but if your customer doesn't know it, nobody knows it. So I think we always have to say, what are the legs of what I'm doing? Where are they? How is this getting to the consumer? We may train florists, and you do that as well in what you do. You may train florists, but I think we also have to say, how is this getting to the consumer? What are the legs? And this is another place where I think technology can play a role. It won't replace in person, but I think a great combination of both. There are trade shows, and we were talking about this earlier, John. There are trade shows large ones here in the United States, who basically within a week changed to a virtual trade show.
Yeah.
Well, bravo to them, because that is hard to do. So I think as we talk about trade shows and how we're connecting with people and the expense of it, I think we could all look at that with a new set of eyes now and say, how could we take this and use it as a springboard for the future growth of our industry? And if we can do that, then I think the virus, as bad as it is, will help us look at things a little bit differently, because we do have to recover, and we will recover, and this may help us recover business-wise. Yeah.
Actually, what we see going on in some European countries is that people realize the effect of flowers that it has on people's health, on people's mood. So hopefully, we can benefit from that as well. So after this crisis, people still remember that flowers got them through the difficult period.
The good news is what we're seeing here and learning is the traditional florists, about 85% of them will be open for Mother's Day, which I think bravo. Now, when we say open, only 20% of those will be open to walk-in traffic at this point, about 19%. The rest are going to do curbside delivery and online delivery, if you will. Supermarket floral, that channel, of course, they've been open because the supermarkets are open. One of the challenges they'll have, though, is the foot traffic. So a lot of the large supermarkets are having only one-way traffic down the aisles, what we call that serpentine, like a snake, serpentine traffic. And some of them even have floral blocked off, and others are using the space of floral for other things, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, etc. So we are seeing that's happening here in the United States with supermarkets, and of course the supply chain throughout is there are obstacles there. But at least I see here that we are recovering in a slow way, but I think we'll see, it will be interesting to see what Mother's Day brings us. All segments are challenged. Even e-commerce has to go through fulfillment centers, and a lot of the fulfillment centers / wholesalers had to close. So we'll see how all of that pans out, but I do see some light at the end of the tunnel with what's happening for Mother's Day.
Yeah, it's what we've seen in Europe. While Easter was coming up, we had, of course, the COVID already striking us. The retailers, actually the supermarkets, had a great turnover because a lot of people went to the supermarket and went daily to the supermarket because it was the only thing they could do because most of the shops were closed. And they started to buy more flowers. The supermarket where there were flowers, actually. Also in Holland, the biggest supermarket didn't have flowers for 1.5 weeks. Because also it was first toilet paper and other things. And after that, they started to sell flowers again as well. But they're all up in sales. The florists with a web shop, things like that, are up in sales and very up in sales, actually. So they're doing good. But there are also florists who don't have a website or things like that. They don't have any turnover at all. So there are big differences, and I think that's something we see all over the world. The people who don't have a website yet, they should hurry up or join somebody else, because I think otherwise you will miss it, and not only during this period but afterwards as well.
Well, I think the biggest challenge we'll have that we don't really see people talk about as much, at least in what I'm reading, magazines and newspapers, is the customers. We're going to have to see, the customers are worried about their wallets right now. There are thousands of people laid off from work. So I think we also have to consider, aside from our businesses, is what's in the consumer's head. And now, the consumers, I think the United States all of a sudden had 70,000 more people sign up for unemployment last week.
Wow.
Alone. So I think people are saying, how long is this thing going to last? So I do think one of the Achilles heel may be, how does the consumer feel about making purchases? Now, I think for Mother's Day, there's an argument that, yes, it's mother and your mother's, worth everything and all of that, and you spend on your mother. But I think that's left to be seen how confident the consumer is as we get through this thing. Because there are a lot of people that have been furloughed or lost their jobs. They're now talking about businesses going bankrupt. So that affects people and what's in their head with buying an incremental product such as ours, such as floral. And then we're going into the summertime, which is, obviously not the high of the business from a retail standpoint. So, we'll have to see how that pans out. But the good news is, we're getting back in the fight. And that's what no matter where I go in the industry, whether it's here in the United States or anywhere else, we're fighters.
Yeah.
And I always tell everybody, the flower business isn't for wimps. The flower business is tough. And we're tough. We're everybody in it. You can't be in this business without being strong. Yeah. And I think that will bless us in the end, that we're all going to fight this together. But I do think we need to focus on technology, both on the supply chain and the front-end consumer. And I think also band together between countries more than we have. Because look, right now we're using technology. Holland to the United States, how easy was this? Easy. And so I think we really need to leverage the big minds in the industry together and really look at this thing from far out and see how we can go to the next level based on what we know from this circumstance we're in now.
Yeah, we're just talking about the gifts for the Mother's Day. Peter Landman, who already said hello, darling, as well to you.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing. Flowers on an affordable gift. That's, I think, a plus, because the last couple of years, it couldn't be crazy enough, the gifts. It was getting more and more expensive, not only a perfume, but also a dinner, things like this. And then a flower is, like Peter says, a more affordable gift than all the other crazy things we did the years before. So yeah, let's
Exactly.
hope that will be in favor for us. Caroline also says
so. Go ahead.
And I think that what I wanted to ask you, because you worked in all three of the different categories, how are they coping with this? How are they reaching out to their customers? Is it the same way, or is it another way they reach out to their customers?
Well, I think first of all, and it may be the same throughout the world, there are different rules in different segments. So here in the United States, the states make the decision on what's open and what's not open. Yeah. So when you're talking about the flower industry, which is intrastate or interstate, it's people are confused. Can I get into New York or can I not get into New York? Or Illinois is open, but Florida isn't open. And so I think the customers are thinking that same way about, what they call the essential business. So, for instance, a lot of the florists and people in the industry struggled with the word essential.
Yeah.
So a lot of them said, well, agriculture is essential because it's food products. Well, does that mean floral is essential? So it's kind of figuring out at first all these different terminologies.
Yeah.
So if you're in the business like we are, it's figuring out the terminology now that you're learning for the first time. What are the new rules now that I have to follow? Can I open, but does everybody have to be 6 feet away? The florists can't be open, but yet the supermarkets can because they have food. They also sell flowers. So I think at first, the first 2 or 3 weeks was figuring out for the customers too, what are those rules? What's open and what's not? So I think that was the first thing, trying to figure out now, boy, how do I act in these new times? And where can I go? Where can I not go? What's going to be open, etc. So I think from a customer standpoint, it was kind of learning what I could do. And again, here's where we get back to the technology. How can I get flowers in a new way? If I can't go into this flower shop, now what do I do? Are we teaching customers now what can you do? And I think I've seen a lot of great stuff, and then I've seen some that I feel like may not be, like you were saying with some of the florists you've seen, some are really getting it and going gung-ho on, hey guys, we're not open inside our flower shop, but guess what? Here's exactly what you do and we can get you flowers because flowers benefit humanity. Then there are others who are worried about it and you don't really see them engaging in that way. And no matter what channel you're talking, whether it's traditional florist, supermarket, or e-commerce, there's some on each side. There's some that are going fully and saying, okay, let's figure this new way out. And they're doing well with communicating it. And then you're getting some who complain about it and are worried about it, but are they really putting legs on it and saying, here's what we can do. Here's our tactics to get through this. And that's where the strategy works. And some are, and unfortunately, some aren't.
Yeah. I mean, some actually directly after everything was announced, they started thinking about, okay, how can we solve this and how can we start our business again? And others were just sitting and thinking, okay, this is a disaster. And some are still after 2-3 weeks thinking this is a disaster, but not moving on. I mean, there's a big difference in people, but I think that's always what's your first reaction, but then what's the second reaction? Okay, we need to do something. We need to still sell flowers. People still need flowers, or maybe even need flowers more than ever. Let's tell them we need flowers more than ever to give them comfort, to give them a good feeling. and that's what you see with some of the florists, some of the growers, or the Flower Council Holland is sending out a message, and as well in South America, they're sending out a positive message. I think this helps a lot as well.
Well, I had a teacher one time, and it was many years ago, but I always remember this. It was during Christmas time, and he put up 15 flower shop Christmas ads.
Yeah.
And he put them up. Of course, the class was classroom style, and he was in front of the room. And he put all 15 advertisements up on a chalkboard. And he turned around, spun around, and he looked at the class, and he said, "What do you see here?" And we were all new. It's like our first day. We were, well, everybody's selling poinsettias.
Yeah.
And he said, "Right." And he said, "This one's $5.99. This one's $19.99. This one's $8.99. This one's $20. And he went through everybody's ad. At this point, we're laughing. We're kind of thinking, okay, what's this guy's point? And he said, "What is the difference between this one that's $5.99 and this one that's $20? So he looked at the person whose ad said $20, and he said, "What's the difference between your poinsettia and this $5.99 one?" And of course, the person being the first day was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're pointing me out." And she said, "Well, mine is, I've got a 3 plant per pot, and it's this, and we inspect, and it's that." So she started to go over her litany of what the benefits of the $20 pot was. And he said, "The customer doesn't know that, though."
Yeah.
He said, "Where on this are you telling the customer that?" And so that's what he said. He said, rule number 1, if the customer doesn't know it, it doesn't happen. It's not true. So I think in all of that, the message of that story, I think for me, that always hits a really soft place for me, is putting legs on all of our messaging and connecting. So as we're getting through this, what does the customer know?
Yeah.
And sometimes you're so busy, what I call, you're so busy sawing down the tree that you forget to stop and sharpen the saw. And I think we're all guilty of that, myself included. And so I think many times we have to say, let's sharpen the saw, and then cutting down the tree is going to be much easier. Yeah. And I think during this time that people have more time on their hands now and are sheltered at home, I always tell people, sharpen the saw. Now's the time to sharpen that saw and message to your consumers, because when we do get past this, whether you're a buyer, a traditional florist, a buyer to supermarket, e-commerce, they're going to be coming out gunning for product because they haven't seen product in a while. Yeah. And so I tell people, be ready for that onslaught.
Yeah, because let's be honest, we just talked about it. When everything opens again, the supermarkets will get the flowers in, the e-commerce will get their flowers in. We get a huge peak of demand. So that's we have to be prepared for that as well. Kate Whelan is saying, this for sure changed the industry structure forever. It's a great time to promote what we all know. Flowers and plants have a positive effect on all of us. That's totally true. Cindy, how do you see the change in the industry? For example, do you see the supermarkets? Will they change their way of selling the flowers? Will the e-commerce change their way of selling flowers?
And, well, I think in all circumstances like this, so most of us everywhere have been through a shutdown in our industry, a tornado. I went through Hurricane Katrina. All of that, tornadoes, snowstorms, hurricanes, whatever. And The difference is where you're totally shut down. The difference is, you know that it's a week later he'll be back in business, or 2 weeks later he'll be back in business.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, I think the big unknown is when.
Yeah.
Not when will we be open, because we already know 85% of the florists will be open in some fashion. But I think what we really have to understand is, when will customers feel comfortable not only coming back in a brick and mortar store and purchasing, but when will they be financially comfortable? So we don't know that yet. But I think the changes in that, as hopefully as you step back and sharpen the saw, each business will say, where are my divots?
Yeah.
Did I communicate well how customers could reach me during this crisis? Was I so confident, like for instance, in, let's say, supermarkets? Well, the flagship in a supermarket is, well, I've got all the foot traffic in the world. I've got 1,000 people walk through my store a day. I'm great. Everything's fine. Yeah. And then literally overnight, nothing. Nobody was buying flowers. So I think we all have to look and assess, in myself included, everybody, look at the business and say, where are those potholes that I probably could have been more prepared for? Nobody could have been, of course, nobody could have known something like this came along. But I think now we've got to go back and say, where did I struggle? I would say for supermarket florists, they may say, gosh, I was so dependent on my walk-in traffic, but I wasn't paying attention to my online, my web shop, my web store. What's wrong with me? Now I've got this problem because I can't teach people overnight. I can't get that message out soon enough. And I think traditional florists the same way. They may say, how do I, I've worked on my events. I've done a lot of revenue from funerals, weddings, and now nobody's having them.
Yeah.
And what can I do maybe to look at my everyday business and grow that a little bit better as well? Or as you said, some florists are on order and not quite as much online. How can I change that? So everybody's a little bit different, and everybody's going to see a little bit of these potholes. And I think that hopefully we'll go forward and say each individual business. But I think industry-wide, there's a lot of things we could do from a technology standpoint. Pete mentioned a few things last night. I work on technology from my end as well, from the supply chain. And one thing that I really loved that Pete said yesterday was, how could we get flowers to the customer faster? Because one of the challenges that I see there's a lot of different touch points. And every time a flower is touched, unboxed, refrigerated or not refrigerated, there's a chance that the product's probably breaking down and the quality suffering at the end. So I think Pete made a really good point yesterday, and I agree. How could we tighten that up? Because one of the challenges is now we're starting to open back up well, I'm ready, but are they ready? Is my middleman ready? Is my wholesaler ready? I'm ready to sell, but is the wholesaler ready? The wholesaler may be ready and say, hey, are the planes operating again? Or is ocean freight operating again? Or are the trucks running again? So there's people ready at different times that I think is a struggle right now. And I think we'll have optics into that as we go further. But I think the greatest piece of news of that is we're ready now. We're ready now. And that, I don't think we could have said that before. I think we're ready for technology and new ways to operate, no matter what channel it is.
Yeah. And I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of growers as well to share their passion online. I mean, they've got the most fantastic stories about their product, where it comes from, how they grow it, things like that. And that passion they should share as well, either online, offline. Now I think the way is to go online. You can reach so many people right now and tell about your product. And if the florist hears your story, if the wholesaler hears your story, he also has a story to tell about your flowers, and a different story than only the price. It's not about what's the price of the lilies. Did you know that the lily comes from there and there and there? It took so many months to grow it, things like that. So we finally can get a different story than only the price one, because everything got more expensive in the world except one thing, and that's flowers. Actually, flowers are getting cheaper. If you look at the supermarkets, what Peter Landman was telling, he said, yeah, normally they were selling for $20. Now they're selling the same bunch for $10. Are they selling more? No, they aren't selling more. But yeah, he said it's like giving away a bouquet with $10 bill on it. I mean, it's crazy. I mean,
well, I think you brought up a really good point there. And speaking from having been a buyer, whether a traditional florist buyer, supermarket, or e-commerce for so long, one of the things that I think is so important for all of us on the retail side, it's a very good important. I feel strongly about this. Don't leave your suppliers in the lurch.
Yeah.
There are some companies that basically called their supplier and said, hey, guess what? Don't ship me anything because here the virus and we're closed down. I think it is so important for both sides, the supply and even the middleman, the bouquet makers, the wholesaler, and the retailers, the retail buyers. I think the buyers need to lead the way and say, look, we're going through this circumstance. How could we work together to make this work? Because at the end of the day, this is a very good indication who your real partners are. They're the people that walk with you through thick and thin. And I think both sides, the buyers need to be very aware that, look, maybe I can ask for somebody to give me a 20% deal because I know they're struggling now.
Yeah.
Is that the right thing to do right now? So one of the things that I believe strongly about that I haven't heard it said is if you're a buyer buying flowers, yes, you could probably get discounts now. Yes, you could probably do many things. And there's a time for that. But I think at this time, be very aware that your suppliers are struggling too, maybe in a worse way. So try to do the right thing, buy your suppliers and be a partner. This isn't the time to be the adversarial buyer. Hey, what kind of deals can you give me? And if you don't give me a deal, I'll go somewhere else. If you have suppliers who have stuck by you as a retailer for many years, this is the time to stand up and say, look, I'm not after a deal. Yes, I'm struggling on my side. I have very little traffic. Let's develop a plan together. TWO gather, two. Both sides creating a plan. I hear a lot of orders got cut and a lot of things happening, and the growers are struggling. And I think let's all do the right thing from whatever you can do that's right. Now's the time to do what's right.
Yeah.
And in the end, it'll pay off because you're going to have people that will trust your integrity. Don't use this circumstance to try to get deals, try to, be a buyer.
Yeah.
That is always after deals or what can you do for me today? This isn't really the time. And I think I saw a comment come up. It's all about loyalty and how people trust you. And so I think that's something that I haven't heard said that maybe people are thinking, but we really, especially I call on the buyers out there to do the right thing with the people who have stood by you through thick and thin. This is the time to show that.
Yeah. And talk to them. Not only talk, like you said, about price, because price is not important at the moment. It's helping each other out, but also start to exchange information. From a buyer side, okay, I've got some difficulties. Maybe you can help me with some flowers with a very long vase life. So if I don't have sales today or tomorrow, I can still work with them a couple of days. Ask about maybe some replacements if a flower is not getting in at the moment because of there's a lack of transportation or air freight. How can you help me with a good replacement? Things like that. I mean, that's very important. I saw this morning, I saw a picture of a passenger plane within the belly, of course, flowers, but even, I don't know if the flowers were also in first class, but you could see they really packed the plane to get the roses in from Africa for Mother's Day. So the growers are and the freight forwarders are doing absolutely everything to get the flowers there. So don't forget that. I mean, they've got tough times as well, but still they are working hard and to get you the flowers in time. So hopefully you can make some money for Mother's Day.
Absolutely. The good news about Mother's Day here and probably there as well, there are two things other than we're going to have, 80-some% traditional florists opening back up. Yes, the consumers might be hesitant, but because it's Mother, they may not be. But I think the other two things we have going for us is we can sell outside. The weather's a little bit better, at least here, and I would guess there as well. There's a big lawn and garden business that can take place outside of the brick and mortar. So I would basically recommend that to traditional florists. Look, see if you could go out on the sidewalk. People will be more comfortable maybe on a sidewalk and look with Square and all these iPads and way you can purchase. Give me your credit card, boom, here you go. You load it in their truck and off they go. Yeah. So one of the things I'd recommend on the retail side, no matter what channel we're talking about, is develop an outdoor selling, whether you put a pop-up tent, a pop-up shop, you do it out in your parking lot and just rope it off or whatever, is push that, because I have a feeling customers will be driving by in their car just like they pick up food to eat, and they'll be saying, oh, look, there's somebody out there. Look at all these flowers. I can drive my car up, give you my credit card, load them up, and off to mom's I go. So I would say really look at your outdoor space and the ability, even remotely. There are different rules out there, but even taking a pop-up shop, say in the parking lot of a restaurant or somewhere else, your own shop, but then another pop-up shop in what we call dislocated places. Look at opening little dislocated pop-up shops around town, maybe 2, 3, or 4, and say, hey, we're going to take advantage of that traffic. People we know are uncomfortable about walking into a store or even walking up to people. Here's what we could do. So I'm a real proponent of the outdoor drive-up selling.
Yeah.
And I think if that's developed and communicated well to the public, that could be big. When I was on the retail side, every holiday I would have, I called it a drive-by, B-U-Y, buy. So we would open remote locations. And at that time, it was much more difficult because you didn't have Square and you didn't have iPads. You didn't have a way to scan people's credit cards. So you had to carry a till with cash in it.
Yeah.
And so we had to have security at every location. Now it's easy. You could be anywhere, take a credit card and have, say, lawn and garden products or what have you in this parking lot of a restaurant and open your own drive-by and maybe have 5 of those satellite areas throughout the city. I would love to see somebody, a retailer, do that and brand that way. I think this is the time.
Yeah, and if you combine this with some signs putting up around the city and pointing out where you are, and both, I think also what help is go online and say, okay, we're selling here, and put some advertisement budget on it as well for the area where you're in. Show videos, okay, we're selling now, we've got customers coming in, and I mean, you have to shout, you have to give it the legs, like you said. You have to get it out to the customers. That's the way to go.
When we had ours, we actually had 3 of them, in the parking lot of an ice cream shop. So if you kind of picture this layout, the cars come into the parking lot, they see your signage, Mother's Day flowers with a big arrow, they turn. So you really have to make it look like a drive-through facility, whether it's a fast food or whatever.
Yeah.
What we did was cars would drive through and we'd have it marked with pylons. So they knew exactly where they had to drive. We had a menu, and it was a limited menu. It wasn't 85 things, because you don't want somebody looking at 85 things holding up traffic. Yeah. So we'd have a menu board. We'd create that with photographs, pricing. The cars would come around, roll down their window. They'd look at, here are the 10 things that we have available. They would drive up, and we'd have them right there ready to put in their car, and off they go. And while they were waiting in line, and we never had much of a line, but while they were waiting, the ice cream shop would actually serve them little ice cream cones, mini ice cream cones, free of charge, because we were bringing clients into their facility as well. So those are the kind of business strategies that I would love to see be birthed out of this predicament in a new way. Yeah. And even if we're not struggling with a virus, I think these are some things that maybe people will look at and say, wow, let me try these. Because now we could do remote with credit cards and all that we couldn't even 5 years ago or 6.
Yeah, it's became much easier, but because it's so easy, maybe we even forgot already about it, and that we can combine it with some really great ideas like the drive-by. And of course, there are many other ideas. Just some quick pop-up store doing things like that. It would be a great idea. Of course, the local government or the rules should allow it, because Kate is telling currently we wouldn't be able to do that in the UK. We are only allowed to deliver. I think we get a fine, but it would be great once the lockdown restrictions are lightened. I mean, this idea, if you do it next year, why not? Maybe in 2 years. Don't do it all the time, but that's something what people are going to talk about. You have to be on top of people's mind, and make pictures, make small videos, make sure somebody puts it online as well, because also that has become much easier. Putting up signs in the street is one thing, but reaching out to everybody in the city with just a budget of maybe $10, $20 and shouting out, look, we have a drive-by with flowers. I mean, for $20, you can reach everybody. And that's so easy. And if you can do it, and you can use the pictures, you can use the videos, just prepare it well. And then I think it would be great to do it. I love the idea. Actually, I want to do it now outside here.
Yeah, I know. I want to do one. That was the funnest, I would say, in all my 40-some years. Our drive-bys were, we actually got newspaper covers. It was so new then, the newspaper came and wrote articles, etc. But but yes, that's a challenge, because now every area has different rules, just like Kate said. Good point. But there are some that are allowed to do it, even if it's going outside of your brick and mortar florist shop and having people drive up and handle it that way, the same as people are buying food. Yeah. And that's another area that I think the customer has gotten much more comfortable with. Like, for instance, we have our groceries delivered now here at my house. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I like to pick up my own stuff. And now I've got somebody that's going to pick out my produce after. So it's so interesting how people change, and they learn things. And I think that's the best thing that can happen out of this dire situation that we have is, yes, getting back into business the safest way, follow all the rules, but then how can we get back what we had and also develop new ways? And I think what you're doing with these videos is so important, because people are sharing so many ideas, and we need to do that internationally. I can't tell you how many times I'll go to another country and people say to me all the time, gosh, you probably heard it all after 40 some years. And I'll say, no, it's the opposite. The minute you think you know it all, those are the people that aren't even close to knowing it all. And I think really not being afraid to say, hey, I need help. How can you help me? Because you've been my partner. But I think also sit down with people and say, hey, give me some ideas. Can you give me 2 ideas and I'll share 2 of mine? This idea sharing that you're doing here, I think is so great. Number one, it's inspiring because we're all kind of detached from people. And I know Peter Landman's online and hopefully Mark Frank, and we're people persons.
Yeah.
So we're used to being engaged with people all the time. And these things really help us inspire each other. And I think that's going to be a benefit as we come out of this also is, hey, we all, at the end of the day, we need each other. We're not, my dad always said, if you're the leader of a band, a marching band, and there's nobody marching behind you, you don't need to be the leader of a band. So I think we all have to ask ourselves, we're all, I think floral people for the most part are type A personalities. I think we all have to say, yes, I can lead the band, but I want the band behind me or marching with me. And I think that's what events like this really inspire people to do. And we're much more comfortable doing it. Don't you see how many more people are doing things online than before? We're like, how do I even go on Facebook Live? But now they're inspired and it opens up a whole new creativity lane.
Yeah. I've got, especially the first week we started this, I got so many questions about which program is it where you're broadcasting and things like that. Actually, for the people who want to know, it's BeLive.tv. It's a great program. But we need to help each other. I mean, yesterday I was calling with a friend, and it's a hotel business with a restaurant, and they said, okay, we've got tough times because we've got obviously no guests in the hotel, so the restaurant is not working as well. While Mark is saying he's there with a big hug. And
hey Mark, how you doing?
And that's what I wanted. We were also sharing ideas, and that's maybe also a good one for people. Don't look within the flower industry, also look outside of the flower industry. We were talking about the restaurant, and I said, okay, but why don't you do delivery and do a Mother's Day delivery with the restaurant and include a bouquet in it? Or maybe have a romantic dinner for 2 delivery with a bouquet with it. Things like that. I think if you look at your neighbor who has a restaurant, gather up. I mean, he is having a tough time as well. And if he can offer a really nice dinner or a romantic dinner, including a bouquet, he has something special. You will have something special as well, because you can both advertise on it. So you're only spending half the budget. I think there are so many ideas still that we can develop and reach out to the customers to make it easier. You already said as well, it's really easy. I get my groceries in now, so I will continue doing this. But if we forget to do that with our flowers, people, I'm not saying that you are lazy, but people are getting more lazy because everybody is, okay, groceries, we can bring them to you at home. Everything can be brought at home. I mean, and if we forget to do it with flowers, there is just a handful of people who take the effort to go out and get flowers. I think that's an important thing. We need to reach out to the customers.
I think it's I think people are reevaluating how they're spending their time. And I think, so I think the Cindy's of the world and probably many other people now are having groceries delivered is, do I really need to allocate 3 hours a week to grocery shop when I buy the same things every week, et cetera, et cetera? The same thing for businesses. Do we really need these high rises? And look, I was in the corporate world for many, many years. And it's like, I can tell you an 8-hour day, people would come in your office and they'd sit there for, 45 minutes to an hour shooting the breeze, wanting to catch up on the day. So I think people are doing study on productivity. What do I really need to do? The same with the drive-by idea. There may be people that want to come in and look at the flowers or have them delivered or shop online. But I think giving them all those choices, not just one, because you're most comfortable in one. So I think going out and saying, hey, I can offer 4 different ways to buy. That's okay. There's no rule, not now. But as we get out of this, so we have 4 different ways to buy. What's the investment there? I've got the product to sell. Yeah. How do I, as we've said before, how do I put legs on it? And how do I communicate it? So I think there's so many great things that as we come out of this and we work really diligently together, we'll see some things that we've not seen before. And I think the most important part is getting us back operating, and I think we're going to do that for the most part Mother's Day. But I think all of us need to keep pushing those things through summer and continue pushing, because it'll be normally summer's the long.
Yeah.
So it'll be easy to kind of say, well, there's no business in summer now. I'm going to let my foot off the pedal. We're going to have to keep pushing, but there's no better people than in this industry. We know how to get the job done, and we know how to work together. We just want to throw in some collective new ideas with all of us working together, and nobody can stop us.
No, it's actually, we're all consumers. Also, if you have a flower shop or you're in the retail business, we're all consumers as well. We are out of our comfort zone at the moment. We have to stay at home. We have to get our groceries delivered while we normally get them ourselves. We are already out of our comfort zone. Why should you stay in your comfort zone with your company? Because it doesn't match. It doesn't match at the moment, because everybody is looking for something new or getting some new things, new ways to buy things. Why should you stick to the old one while as a person you're also a consumer, working on new ways and new things? It's 2 ways. Caroline is asking, what, if any, opportunities do you see out of all of this? I think that's a good one for you.
Well, I think many of the things that we've spoken of is working tight, more closer with the supply community, more in a partnership other than what do you have today and how cheap can I get it. I think learning to kind of work as more of a marketing unit of the product. So I think that's number 1. Expanding your ways that you connect with the customer. Number 2 is, and it's a little different by channel. Traditional florists, mass market florists, and e-commerce are a little different. But in each area, there are ways that I think, because we had the advantage of, for instance, supermarkets, great walk-in traffic, did we forget about online? Did we forget about drive-by selling? How could we, same with a traditional florist, now people can't come into my shop. Now what do I do? Or it could possibly be, Carolyn, in the lineup that you offer. So say a lot of the business came from before, events, weddings, funerals. Now they're not there. What's missing? Now what can I do? If my events go away, how can I help? How can I keep my business going? And everybody's going to be a little bit different, but I think every business needs to study that. And I would say globally, there's so many things, whether it's technology, marketing, that we could do a better job of working together. Look, we're here online. We could be talking about any program and work collectively on those marketing programs instead of in silos. So I think those 3 will help us as we come out of this, think of our business in a new way. And just remember, if the customer doesn't know it, it hasn't happened. So we could do 85 things that are new, but if the customer doesn't know it, then we've done 85 things that have no rhyme or reason and don't matter. So I think in all of that, and that's one thing that I do see in Europe when I'm there. Every time I'm there, I see an organic connection to consumers that I don't see almost any other place. So I mean, just like your circus, and you know, I think that's such a cool idea. And I do see a lot of creativity from the Europeans over there in how they connect with consumers. It's not just, we're kind of over here, I think, very structured in how we communicate to consumers. I think Europeans are more free.
Yeah.
The connection to the consumer. So that's something that I would want to learn. If I were a retailer, I would want to sit down and say, let's think this out. Let's get a think tank together, but then we got to have doers that put legs on it also.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people get a lot of great ideas and then it doesn't have any legs and go anywhere. So I think, Carolyn, those are the main three things that could come out of this, that we think of our business and our customer connection in a new way. Why? Because the customers also become more comfortable with it. So I think that'll bring us good things as we recover.
Actually, we've got a great job in the floral industry, but actually we're way too shy to tell people about it. I mean, wherever I go, even without a suit, if you tell that you're in the floral business, everybody wants to know about it. And the more you tell about it, the more people are surprised. But if I look on the internet, doesn't matter who it is, we're too shy telling about what we're doing. If you made a great bouquet in your shop, take a picture. Say, okay, we've just got a customer in. Look at this great bouquet. Things like that. You don't need to mention the price or whatever, but tell about it. Be good and tell about it. That's something that's said a lot, but we as a floral industry need to do it. I mean, I see so many brochures of growers, floral companies with almost no flowers in it. It's like if you're looking at a brochure from a hospital. While in every other industry where they don't have something nice, they put flowers in their brochure so it looks nice. Mm-hmm. So for us, maybe it's normal to work with flowers, but for the people coming into a flower shop, it's like heaven for them. And we need to present it to them more. I mean, we need to give that feeling to them more. Come into our flower shop, come into our e-commerce, and we will present you a piece of heaven with our bouquets. Things like that.
I think make it easy for the customer to buy. I think that's another thing that I study on my end is, you know, flowers have care rules to them. You know, you cut this, you do this, the preservative, you dose it right, and all this. All that's important. But I think the way it's presented to the customer, we don't want it to be work. How can we present that in a fun way to the consumer? Some companies are doing that now, and I think kudos to them. How can we really engage customers? Because what I say a lot of times is, I've spoken to many consumer groups, they're afraid of our product. They're like, oh, I don't buy flowers because they die, and I don't know how to take care of them, and I don't buy plants, I kill plants. And I tell people, we're the only organization and industry that sells gifts that people are afraid of.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, how do we make them not afraid? How do we make them not afraid if a plant dies? How do we make them? So I think making it fun. It's not necessarily showing how to make a design from behind an 8-foot table. We've seen those. You could go on YouTube and there are tens of thousands. I think kind of like Peter and Mark do, how do you make that fun and engaging?
Yeah.
How do you, you can either make it fun or not make it fun. You can make it hard or make it easy. So I think, remember, as we're engaging, yes, there are rules around some of our products. There are design rules, care rules, but think of new ways to present that. So the customers we're not creating a barrier for customers that doesn't need to be there.
I think we have something in common with doctors sometimes. If you break a bone, they will talk in Latin, or will say in Latin that you broke a bone, and then you will ask, okay, what happened, because I don't understand, and then they tell you which bone you broke. We are sometimes talking about lavandula and all the Latin names of the flowers, but the consumer, they don't understand. And we had an interview with Miranda van Kester from Miraculeus, and she saw this one. And this is to tell the customers, look, if you buy this box of plants, you will attract bees and butterflies.
There you go.
Names doesn't matter. Which kind of plants it is, people will not remember, but that they attract bees, that is something that people will remember. If you reach out to the customer like this, I think it's bingo. If you got plants, Zamioculcas, it almost doesn't die. You really have to try to kill it. Sell it like that.
Yeah,
the plants you can't kill. Yeah. Things like that. And then people directly remember. They're not afraid anymore. They have a laugh and they take it with them. I mean, reach out to the customer in their language. Sometimes we're too busy and saying, this plant with this name. No, look, these are the plants. It's a box with 3 different plants and they attract bees and butterflies. Simple as that.
Yeah, I love it. Look how beautiful they are.
Yeah. And actually they've got different, let's see if I can quickly find another one. This one as well. It's different kind of boxes. Plant de parfum. So they all got a really nice smell of all the different plants. I mean, how simple is it?
Well, I gave you one of the slides of a consumer education I did, and it's the dirty little secret, talking about the benefits of plants, but also the benefits of soil. So soil has great benefits of if you put your hands in the soil, there are actual nutrients in the soil that translate to humans. And so I did a presentation, but we have a dirty little secret, meaning the secret of soil.
Yeah.
And how cool is the soil and the elements of gardening, if you will. So I think all of those things, we like to be the experts, and we are, and we think of our product very scientifically, and that's good because we have to get that to the customer in great shape, and we want the longevity there. But I think also the most important part is, what could we tell the consumer that isn't, like you say with the doctor, I don't need what you learned at medical school, but tell me in a fun way so I'm not afraid of it. I'm not afraid, and I don't feel bad when it dies.
Yeah, or bad when I don't know the name of the flower or the plant. That's sometimes what's happening as well. Just let the people feel comfortable. I mean, you invited them, or they came into the flower heaven or into your flower shop. And that's I used to work for a chrysanthemum breeder, and that's what I tell as well. Welcome. When I opened the greenhouse, I said, welcome in the world of the chrysanthemums. And you saw all kinds of shapes and colors and everything. And I just stopped and showed them, look, this is it. And then they were, wow. But you are getting into your flower shop every day, and it's like, okay, the same things. But for people, it's something special. That's the same I tell to growers, which we help with social media. They say, yeah, but if I tell every time about the same flower, I said, yeah, but people have 1,000 friends on Facebook or on Instagram. If you're one of the 1,000, and every week you play something about that flower, which makes it special, or it helps with people's mood, or you're harvesting at the moment, or every step on the way, people really enjoy reading it. I mean, we have to tell more about it.
So, I mean, it's like when you put a piece of furniture together, it's like, very few people want to read the directions. They have to discipline themselves because the directions are the least fun of it. So I think, I think as, I think, Carolyn, another thing for the, number 4 is the communication to your customers. Because we've been through a lot right now, and we have to think of the many people, who have, like, for instance, here in the United States, we've had 5 million people tested for COVID. Almost a million of those are positive. So I think knowing that what the country and countries, the world's going through, is now say, hey, as we get into business and we start to heal, what are some things I can do in a different way, not just tactically, but how do I communicate maybe in a different way? So as we communicate the real value of flowers, make sure that we put legs on that and the customer really knows, because we're going to be looking for ways to heal emotionally, physically, everything, because we've been through this. Many people have lost people in their lives. So I think really remember that even as people start slowly coming out of this and we get past the curve, knowing that people, how do we communicate differently? And we may want to communicate differently.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. It's really great talking to you. I think I can talk for hours with you. Hopefully hopefully we can do it soon in the US. Is there anything you want to add to the viewers?
I think I tried real hard to get my hair to look like Pete's, because Pete has super cool hair. But the salons weren't open, so what you see is what you get with the hair. No, he had great hair. I enjoyed his presentation yesterday, and I'm going to go back and look at the others, and then I know you have more coming. But it's very inspiring, and you're inspiring. I just appreciate, you putting this together and keeping all of us type A personalities, mentally and physically active. And helping each other, and that's what's going to save it is us working together, but on steroids as we come out of this. So thank you very much. It's been a joy.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining the Flower Circus Talks. Tomorrow, actually, we've got a woman who's working for me. She's going to tell us all about the social media and how to present your company over there. The trends, things like that. So I think for a lot of people, this is very interesting. She has done this all over the world for insurance companies, but also for growers, breeders, and she does it for flowers. A very knowledgeable person about this subject. So also for tomorrow, if you have any questions, just type them already now, or maybe tomorrow during the live stream. So thank you everybody for watching. Thank you again, Cindy. Hope to see you soon, and stay safe.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. I miss you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.